Good day, everyone. I am Jessica Montes. Today, I am going to discuss with you my assigned topic titled Teaching Prose and Dramatic Prose. First, we will going to tackle about review on the genres of prose. Let's define what is prose. Prose is a form of written or spoken language that typically exhibits a natural flow of speech and grammatical structure. It is also a literary device referring to writing that is structured in a grammatical way, with words and phrases that build sentences and paragraphs. So as we have tackled last lesson, we have tackled about poetry and now we're going to discuss prose. Definitely the difference between prose and poetry. In poetry, they use different structures and languages, while in prose, it is often used in literature, but the flows and the structures, grammatical structures, and flow of speech are very understandable and for the readers as well. The word prose, it is first appears in English in the 14th century. It is derived from the Old French prose, which in turn originates in the Latin expression prosa or oratio, literally straightforward or direct speech. I have here an example of prose. On the example that I provide, the work is written in a poetic manner, so you can see the difference between prose and poetry. So let's read the example. The caterpillar and Alice looked at each other for some time in silence. At last, the caterpillar took the hookah out of its mouth and addressed her in a languid, sleepy voice. "Who are you?" said the caterpillar. This was not an encouraging opening for a conversation. Alice replied, rather shyly. "I hardly know, sir. Just a present. At least I know who I was when I got up this morning, but I think I must have been changed several times since then." "What do you mean by that?" said the caterpillar certainly. "Explain yourself." "I can't explain myself, I'm afraid, sir," said Alice, "because I'm not myself, you see." "I don't see," said the caterpillar. "I'm afraid I can't put it more clearly," Alice replied very politely, "for I can't understand it myself to begin with, and being so many different sizes in a day is very confusing." "It isn't," said the caterpillar. Now I have read the example of a prose. So as you can see, the grammatical structures and the form of speech are understandable, and it didn't use unfamiliar words such as the words being used before in poetry that we cannot really understand easily. And now let's know more about prose. The prose has four distinct types of prose. Basically, these four types are usually used by the writers. We have non-fictional prose, fictional prose, heroic prose, and prose poetry. For non-fictional prose, it is based eventually on three events, and non-fictional prose support factual accounts or events, or an information is non-fiction. Examples are essay and biography, so decent biography are true-to-life basis stories. So we have also here fictional prose. It is a magical pattern that tells an image, imaginary, or an invented story. Most fictional prose are imaginary or like made up stories by authors. Examples are novels and short stories, and all says that almost great stories are fictional prose because readers like fictions and imaginations. Third one is heroic prose. This is basically legend or fables. We might hear it, watch it, or even read it. It is written down or preserved through oral tradition that is That is, but it is meant to be recited, so some examples are legend or Mark Arthur, like that. So these heroic prose are preserved through generation by generation. There may some a little bit of alteration along the way, but the main idea and main characters are still the same. Last is prose poetry. Like what I've said for prose and poetry, in a nutshell, a prose poetry is basically a poetry that is written in prose. There are still some characteristics of poetry like poetic matter or meter, language play and focus on images rather than narrative plot and character. But the way it is written, the way it is formed, are based on grammatical structure and the speech is easy to understand. It's not chaotic or not familiar to us, but it is relatable and the language are used on an everyday basis. It is seemingly just a recap because we have discussed it in our high school days. So that's all the four distinct type of a prose. Here is an example of prose poem. I want to write how brave you are, but I need a little courage of my own. So I write, forgive me. I know I let them hurt you. Please don't worry. As you have observed in this stanza of a prose poem, you can really see the language play, the characteristics of this example, basically, but it is written in a prose manner.